through a record a message while doing Zoom. I don't have to be in a full Zoom meeting. I can do it by myself. I can record the message. When I do that, I can even go through a PowerPoint while I'm doing it. That is just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
The catch is, you gotta have the internet. And I've got, my son gave me a Wi-Fi thing, but I'll be able to show you Blue Letter Bible, but I won't be able to show you the, I won't be able to show you the Zoom, the Zoom meeting. All right, here we go again. What are you seeing on the screen right now?
Your computer screen.
My computer screen. Okay. This is what you're seeing, right?
Yes.
Now you're seeing Blue Letter Bible.
Yep. Yep.
Excellent. We're getting there. Now you should be seeing the slideshow.
Yes.
Okay. All right, folks. Let's go ahead and go. All right, we need to tie a few loose ends up from last week and share a possible solution. We'll get to that down the road. But John mentioned something last week as I was talking about the only new moon reference in the Torah was in the context of the 7th month. And I said, you know what? I didn't consider that. I need to look into it. So I did. Technically, that's true. The phrase new moon is only found once in the Torah. However, the same Hebrew word is also translated the first day of the month, and that's found 7 times in Torah. So here it is as new moon. It's 12 times. I searched it by new moon in quotes. It's 12 times, and the first occurrence is right there in Numbers 29:6. We talked about that last week. That is talking about the 7th month feast, okay? So when I step down into, I'll give you a demonstration in a bit, but when I step down into it and I look, I see that it's a phrase, and it is Kodesh, Hebrew 23:20, H23:20 is the word. New moon, and it's found in Samuel once, or excuse me, it's found in Numbers once, 1 Samuel 3 times, 2 Kings once, Psalms once, Ezra twice, Amos once. Why is this important? Because this is our guidance. This is our measuring stick. This is our referee. This is whatever you want to call it. When we got a difference, this is the solution maker. Or not maker, it's already provided. Okay? Next, I showed the first day of the month. That comes up 13 times, and the first time that the first day of the month shows up is in Genesis 8:5. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. Okay? So that begins to show us the first day of the month. And the first use of it is found in Genesis 8:5. That too is Kodesh. It's found twice in Genesis, twice in Exodus, once in Leviticus, once in Numbers, and once in Deuteronomy. So that makes 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 in Torah. To go with the one that we found is 8 in Torah so far. Ezra, it shows up 5 times, and Haggai once. So we see that the word Hebrew, we see that the Hebrew word H2320, Kodesh, is translated into English as both new moon and the first day of the moon. But if we look up the word Kodesh itself, it's found 86 times in the Torah. It's found 11 times in Genesis, 18 times in Exodus, 15 times in Leviticus, 38 times in Numbers, and 4 times in Deuteronomy. Basically, it's moon, new moon, or the first day of the month.
So in the context of what we were talking about was blowing the horn on the shofar.
Patience,
Hmm?
sir, patience, please.
Patient.
Be patient.
Okay. Well, but there's all over I mean, you can look all over the scriptures and find the first day of the month, just like you're saying, but what's the context of it?
Okay.
Okay.
Can I add a little context for you?
Go ahead. I know what the first day of the month is.
Okay.
Or the first day of the moon is.
Now I want to focus on the new moon being the first day of the month. Any month, not just the seventh month. In Genesis 8:5, the waters decrease continually until the 10th month. There's a 10th month. How do we know we have a 10th month? Because we had a 9, an 8, 7, a 6, a 5, because we knew where the first month was, right? All right. Numbers 29:1. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. We're all familiar with this. We've all been through the Torah many times. But the 7th month, all of the months have a first day of the month. But you don't know what the month is without knowing when the first day of the month is. In Genesis 8:13, and it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first day of the month. So it keeps coming up, right? Just like John just said, that the waters were dried up on the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and indeed the surface of the ground was dry. Here's where we begin to find out when the first month is, right? Exodus 12. Now Yah spoke to Moses and Aaron and in the land, saying, this month shall be your beginning of months, it shall be the first month of the year to you. Now this is where we get the first month from. In Exodus 40, verse 17, and it came to pass the first month of the second year, and on the first day of the month, the tabernacle was erected. So now here again, we have a first month, and we have a second year. We know we got a second year from where we were counting from the first month, the first time. We had the first year, now the second year. We're keeping track of stuff. Just like we keep track of the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, and so on. Deuteronomy 1:3. Now it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had given him as commandments to them. What are the patterns we're seeing here in the Torah? We're seeing days, months, and years. Does everybody see that pattern? There's days, months, and years. All right? So now let's take a few minutes to focus on the fact that offerings are related to the new moon. Okay? There's the first one we said. In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall do no customary work. For you, it is a day of blowing the trumpets. Numbers 29:2. You shall offer burnt offerings as a sweet aroma to Yah, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year, without blemish. Verse 3. The grain offerings shall be fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram. Verses 4 and 5. And 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also, 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to make atonement. So he's going through all the offerings that you're supposed to kick off on this day. And then we get to number 6, verse 6. Besides the burnt offering with its grain offering for the new moon. Now the way that I'm reading that is all that stuff he listed that's all supposed to be done besides the burnt offering with its grain offering for the new moon. Calling out the new moon having a grain offering and a burnt offering, right? Then it says on top of that, this is in addition to, this is besides that, it's also besides the regular burnt offerings with its grain offering and their drink offerings according to all the ordinances as a sweet aroma and ordinance made by fire to Yah. Another scripture, speaking of offerings at the new moon, is in 1 Chronicles 23:31. Now I'm breaking this down. Now we're tying the offerings from the offerings to the new moon. In 1 Chronicles 23:31, and at every presentation of burnt offering to Yah on the Sabbaths and on the new moons and on the set feasts, by number, according to the ordinance governing them, regularly before Yah. Now, to John's point, this isn't Torah. To our point as a group, we know that the rest of Scripture supports Torah. Do we not? Let's see if this does. That's a rhetorical question. Okay, we already know. This appears to be the only two scriptures that relate to an offering at the new moon or the first day of the month. One is in Torah, one is not. One is singular, one is and it's related to Yom Teruah, and the other is plural. It's tied to months. Okay? Does the evidence so far indicate we were a commandment that's given to recognize the moon or the new moons? Hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. Now we're going to zoom out a few verses from Chronicles, First Chronicles 23:31, and pick up some context for the plural moons. Okay? A brief context before we dive into this. This is when David divided up the Levites into 24 divisions. And we're going to pick up in 1 Chronicles 23, verse 25. 1 Chronicles 23, verse 25. For David said, Yahweh Elohim of Israel has given rest to his people that they may dwell in Jerusalem forever. And also to the Levites. They shall no longer carry the tabernacle or any of the articles for its service. For by the last words of David, the Levites were numbered from 20 years old and above, because their duty was to help the sons of Aaron in the services of the house of Yah, in the courts and in the chambers, in the purifying of all holy things, and the work and the service in the house of Elohim. Verse 29, both with the showbread and the fine flour and the grain, the offering, with the unleavened cakes, and what is baked in the pan, and what is mixed, and with all kinds of measures and sizes. And here's our verse. And I wanted to point this out. And to stand every morning to thank and praise Yah, and likewise in the evening. That's what the priests are supposed to be doing. Standing and thanking and praising Yahweh. And then in the evening too. And then verse 31. And at every presentation of burnt offering to Yah on the Sabbaths and on the new moons and on the set feasts by number according to the ordinances governing them regularly before Yah. And verse 32, closing that passage out. And that they should attend to the needs of the tabernacle of meeting, the needs of the holy place, and the needs of the sons of Aaron, their brethren, and the work in the house of Yah. Okay, so David is saying that these offerings needed to be offered at the moons. I'm interpreting that as each moon. Whereas the other one we talked about in the Torah was only calling out one moon. It wasn't calling out one moon. It was saying at the feast of trumpets at Yom Teruah, in addition to what was already there, the offerings for the new moon and so on. I understand that to read that the offerings for the new moon was already in place. Was it just the seventh month? I don't think so. I think David alludes to the months being plural.
You talking about King David?
I'm talking about King David, yes.
Okay.
I'm talking about King David. All right. Now, real quick, I want to fast forward to a picture from the kingdom in Ezekiel 46. Ezekiel 46. Verse 1. Thus says Yahweh Elohim, the gateway of the inner court that faces toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and on the day of the new moon it shall be open. That says singular. It probably implies plural. This is in the kingdom. We're still going to be celebrating the new moon, and we're still going to be looking at the new moon in the kingdom. There's a caveat to that, okay? We'll get to that caveat in the end here. On the day of the new moon, what does that really mean when it's saying that? Let's straighten that out now. On the day of the new moon, basically that's the first day of the month, right? On the day of the new moon. A young bull without blemish, 6 lambs, and a ram. They shall be without blemish. So the kingdom picture reveals that there's still sacrifices or offerings. There's still offerings on the day of the new moon. Now, if we're to do it in the kingdom, shouldn't we rehearse it here while we're waiting on the kingdom?
Do you have a priesthood?
Pardon me?
Do you have a priesthood? The priesthood's not here, because it stopped.
Okay.
Well, the point is, when you read this is the priest that's blowing the trumpets. They're not blowing shofars, they're blowing trumpets.
Okay. Hold on. Let's stop there for a second. Do you make any offerings in the feast in the 7th month?
Yeah, I do. But there's no priesthood there. But they still blow the trumpet on that. It said to blow it on that day. That's the day of trumpets.
Okay. All right.
So,
Okay. I follow what you're saying.
yeah, I'm not trying to be a nitpicker, but
No, I want you to be a nitpicker. I really
because
do.
the context of it is, what I was saying was that when you look at the direct blowing the trumpet on the new moon in Psalms is the only place that it says new moon, the feast day, the solemn feast day, and it's talking about the people celebrating in a joyous celebration. If you read the whole chapter,
Okay.
the whole chapter,
Okay.
and that's what I was saying. So when you read in Numbers, the priests were required to blow the trumpets on the new moon for offerings,
Okay.
to cover the offerings, okay?
Okay.
It says that it says it in 10:10 or something like that. Yeah, chapter 10:10 in Numbers, it says the priest will blow the trumpets. This is when he told Moses to build 2 silver trumpets, right?
Right. That's when everything was getting set up.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the setup.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so,
All right.
but I understand what you're saying, because we know that the new moon, there has to be a new moon. Every 29 and a half or 30 days, there's gonna be a new moon,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Right. But the singular versus the plural still doesn't seem clear. Context can fix that. Line upon line can fix that. Precept upon precept can fix that. But you got to start with the first line and the first precept. You can't engage line upon line in the middle of the scripture and think that you've got everything in context. Ezekiel 45:18 says, "Thus says Yahweh Elohim, in the first month, on the first day of the month, you shall take a young bull without blemish and cleanse the sanctuary." Now, we have to know when the first month arrives. And again, that's going to be the priests. But the priests are required in the feasts that we rehearse every year here. But we do it without them,
Let's rehearse that.
right?
I got your point.
Okay. We have to know when the first month arrives, and therefore the new moon must refer to all moons in the year to help us keep track. We can't know the new moon of the 11th month if we don't know the new moon of the first month. Now, turn with me to Genesis 1:1. Y'all have been through this so many times, you really shouldn't need to turn there, but just turn there for giggles and grins. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. Yep, you did it. Then Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw that the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from darkness. What does the light represent?
Yeshua.
Mm-hmm. What does the darkness represent?
The opposite.
Which came first?
The darkness.
The light came out of the darkness, right? I think David's brought that up a time or two, haven't you? Yeah. Okay. All right. Genesis 1:5. Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning, the first day. What made up the first day? The light, the darkness, or both?
Oh.
That's absolutely right. And again, we talked about the darkness coming first. Genesis 1:8. And Elohim called the firmament heaven, so it was evening and it was morning the second day. I'm just going through this, driving home the evening and morning the third day, evening and morning the fourth day, evening and morning the fifth day, and then, and then in 131, Elohim saw everything he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Continuing on into Genesis 2, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Where's the evening and morning on the seventh day?
It's not done.
There is none.
Does that mean there's no separation of light and darkness at that point? I mean, looking futuristically, when we get to the kingdom? That's probably just a coincidence, though. But now I want to focus on making this computer work. I want to focus on the fourth day for a second. Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day and the night, the day from the night, and let them be signs for and seasons for the days and the years. Days, months, years. It's a pattern. It's a pattern. It's a pattern. We can't know, we know the month, we know the days by the cycle of it being dark. Wait, no, day starts in the morning, right? Day starts at sunrise? Is that what? No. Day doesn't start at sunrise. Well, it does for us in the West here, because in America, no, it starts at midnight for us.
Yeah, that's right.
The darkness is first, and then there's a day. But once we know we have a complete cycle, that's a day.
Yeah.
We go through that 6 times, and we rest, and that's a week. We go through that group 4 times, figuratively speaking, okay? 4 times, and we get a month. That means the moon has made a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Now we go through those moons, and we get a year, and we have to do all that before we can know when the year of Jubilee is. It's all sequential, it's all patterned right there in front of us, and it's been that way for quite some time. Verse 15, and then let them be lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. Verse 16, then Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. If you've been watching the moon, like I asked you to, okay, you could see in the daytime, you can look at the lesser light and see it up there. You can't look at that greater light very well.
Yeah.
But it's lighting up, and you can still see the lesser light. Elohim set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth. I'm going to pause there for a second. I didn't put this in my study, but this is a little sidebar note. He made the heaven, he made the greater light and the lesser light to give light on the earth, natural light. the light that came out of the darkness was not a natural light. That was a supernatural light. But we said that represents Yeshua, and Yeshua himself said, I am the light of the world. Huh. And then he tells us we're the light of the world. That's just a side note. You can run with that if you want. But all right, verse 18. And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. The light from the darkness, we said what that was earlier. The light from the darkness is being separated. And Elohim saw that it was all good. In verse 19. So it was evening and it was morning the fourth day. All right. The day begins with darkness, just like the earth began with darkness. And I suggest to you that the month and the year do the very same thing. What do I mean? How does the year start with darkness? I thought the first month, when it started the year, what's going on between the end of the seventh month and the beginning of the first? Can I hypothetically call that darkness?
It's considered a spiritual darkness also.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't realize that, but
It's what?
it's considered a spiritual darkness as well.
From what time to what time?
From the end of the seventh month, which is the the end of the feast cycle, to the beginning of the first month, which starts the feast cycle again. Which kind of triggered this whole study because we're coming up on that season to start the feast season again. All right, now I want everybody to turn with me to Genesis 4, verse 3. Genesis 4, verse 3. Verse 3. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Elohim. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of the flock and of their fat. And Yah respected Abel and his offering. Now I want you to put yourself in the sandals of Cain and Abel here for a minute, okay? Were they aware of a Passover? How about an unleavened bread?
Yeah, I don't think so.
A Shavuot? Trumpets? Atonement or tabernacles?
No.
You think they were aware of a new moon?
Yeah.
That too is probably just a coincidence though, right? I don't expect an answer. Think about it though. They're offering for a reason.
It said it was time. for an
Morty, the
offering.
volume's up on that, but.
They're bringing the offering of their first fruits.
What's that?
You know, they were bringing their harvest offering. We don't know what it was. There's a point to it though. When did he tell Israel, this is the beginning of months for you?
On the 12th, on
Exodus 12.
Exodus 12, yeah.
Okay. Before that, nobody ever was told when the year started or when it ended. The only reason we know the ages of people is because Yahuwah told Moses when he was relating the Genesis story to him.
When he was dictating it down, right?
When he was dictating
At the
it,
top of the
he
mountain.
knew how old the people were.
Right.
They knew how old they were.
Okay.
Because they counted years, but they didn't have months and years. He did. Creator did.
I follow you, John.
Yeah.
But
So-
physically,
So we're
but
going back to Cain and Abel, they knew that there was a cycle of the moon, I'm sure, because they were farmers, they lived off the land. So
well,
they-
that and the fact that they were observing it happen.
Well, yeah, they knew the cycles, I mean, they knew that the moon went around and it got dark and light and whatever,
Uh-huh.
and they had counted days, I don't know how they kept it. But it doesn't say they didn't have it until the Creator said, this is the beginning of the month for you. That's when man started counting months. before that, the Creator was keeping count. So what were they doing? They were probably making an offering, right? And why? That's the first one, right? In the scriptures, that's the first offerings, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. So when Noah got off of the ark, what did he do?
made an altar and made offerings.
Offerings, all right.
Hmm.
I know what your point is, so why was Abel's not, or Cain's not accepted? We didn't talk about it.
Why was Cain's not accepted?
Yeah. What would you think?
Well, he didn't do it the way that Yah had expected it to be done.
Well, there was no blood in the offering.
That didn't make a
said
difference.
his- Huh?
That did not make a difference.
His
But
heart
the
wasn't in
offering
it.
was, didn't Abel make the same offering plus the lamb?
No,
Just the
he
lamb?
just did the lamb.
It just says the lamb.
He was a
made his
rancher.
offering with the lamb.
He was a rancher, Cain was the farmer.
Okay.
So, if you're thinking of it, when we're called out with what Abel gave, it was the best of his fruits.
Right.
And you weren't told that with Cain. So, you know, yes, ma'am.
But it says here, it doesn't say the best of the fruits. It says he brought some of the fruits.
What does it say Abel did?
Brought his firstborn. Abel also brought an offering fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock.
Okay,
But God knew what was in
Probably.
Cain's heart when he was doing the offering. It must not have been pure.
If you were
Yeah,
making,
and-
I would,
and
if
he-
you thought about it, what would be the easiest offering and what would be the hardest offering if you had to kill something to make an offering? To me, that would be a little bit more heartfelt in that than it would be if you just
True.
put up a bunch of crops, so.
Mhm.
That's
True.
all I.
Well, you got, so as you get to the children of Israel, when Yahuwah gave them what the offering, the first offering, that's listed in Leviticus.
Was the lamb,
Is
right.
it old, well, no, it was an Olaf.
yeah, you're
So
right,
it,
yes.
but it started with the lamb,
Mhm.
or the animal, but then it also went into the grain. So it made a distinction between the two. That's all what's happening here between Cain and Abel. It's making a distinction.
That's good stuff.
And so, but it's placing it together, but it's making a distinction in both places. And it's how, what are you to bring? It's just like what was brought up. I don't think Cain brought his best. I think what he probably did was harvest, and then, I'll just take this over to Yahuwah. And he said, oh, it's not acceptable. It wasn't the pristine that it was supposed to be.
Mhm.
Now, that's the way I'm interpreting this, the way I'm looking at it, just from the, the
Well, that
extension of
would
the
be log-
scriptures.
That would be logical.
Well, and that's what,
Because all of the offerings there have to be the best.
yeah, and that,
Right,
in,
it's supposed to be the best.
in the time of the children of Israel, the priests were the ones, the Levites were the ones who made the distinction, okay, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable.
Right.
I think it goes deeper than that, in my opinion, just knowing the hearts of men, and like y'all knew hearts of men, he knew the heart of Cain, he knew the heart of Abel, and just from life, growing up, I think there was probably contention from that child to that child all along, where one was always jealous of the other. Not that we know that, but that's just kind of how I get a feeling about that. I always work harder than you and everything comes easy to you, and
Right.
I just think that might play into it a little bit.
Mhm. Martha?
Yeah, that's where I was going with what Cherie said, because, he's, after this, he's, oh my gosh, well, what did he do, right? It was out of jealousy or whatever the word that comes to mind is narcissism, right? Because that's what murderers are, right? He did something I didn't like, whatever, and so now I'm gonna take care of it
Mhm.
like that, right? And so, you know, his behavior afterwards points right to that. And that didn't happen out of the blue. That didn't happen that day. Like Cherie said, that was how how they grew up or whatever. So that was just, you know, one point in that pattern of behavior, the way Cain was. And he probably said, oh shoot, you know, I gotta do that. Oh, let me just take this, you know. And then what does Yahweh say? What is that? That he prefers devotion over obedience?
No, sacrifice over offering. Obedience is better than sacrifice.
Obedience is better than
Yes.
sacrifice? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, then I had it wrong then.
Yes, ma'am.
He also gave him a second chance. He said, come on, he says, I'll tell you how to do this. Come and bring me what I asked for.
Right,
And he probably didn't do it.
right.
Probably walked off out of them.
Go ahead, David.
I'll add to Carmen's, you know, Cain knew what he was supposed to do, because that's what Yahuwah said to him.
Yep,
You know what you're supposed to do, and you didn't do it.
right,
Right, yeah.
right. Yes, ma'am.
And Abel's bringing the firstborn, that would be, and the fattest, that would be the best he had.
Mm-hmm. We still don't know why they brought the offerings, though, do we?
The reason, yeah. Mine says at the designated time.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the process of time, it came to
Right,
pass.
so there was a,
They must have been counting from the beginning because it says this person was so many years old, this person was so many years old, this person was so many years old.
But that was,
Someone
but-
was counting.
but remember, although Moses is credited with writing the book of Genesis, of Bereshit, he's not present at the time that any of it happens. He doesn't come upon the scene until Exodus, right? And so when, like John said earlier, when he was up on the mountain, that's when Yah was dictating to him all these things, and he's writing this Genesis stuff down, and he's writing by Yah's timetable, not by his own.
Well, also wasn't, Yah was still talking to them like on a personal basis, even though it seems to me.
It does seem,
After that.
it
So,
does
see,
seem that,
there may be some things that just didn't get put in there, even though that's not.
I would concur with that a lot.
yeah. And my note on at the designated time says, and it happened at the end of days, which is in quotes, it's a note on the Hebrew. The clause indicates the passing of a set period of time leading up to offering and sacrifices. So there must have been some set time.
And there was obviously something that was shared with Adam and Eve and passed all the way down through Cain and Abel
Yeah.
from the time that they were kicked out of the garden.
And the set times could be when an animal is considered,
Oh,
you know,
ready to
usually,
offer.
so in our time frame today, an animal will be considered, at this certain age in the early spring. Okay, that'd be 1 year old. In our time, where we're at right now. Same thing with a harvest. You can't offer something you don't have.
That's right.
That's true.
It's like verse, back in 3:22, it says, then the Lord Yah said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now he might stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Maybe there was some kind of an instruction given at the, I don't know. You know, I know it just seems like maybe that was like the distinction.
Well, I think the fact that Yah meets with them outside of the garden confirms what you were talking about before. There's communication there. There has to be communication.
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, cause they brought their offerings to him.
Right,
Right.
right.
Well, wasn't it an atonement?
That wasn't given yet.
No, it wasn't atonement. Ola is the word for it. It's an offering given.
Free will.
Free will.
Free will.
Free will offering.
Yeah, it's an offering that you just give to Yah. That's what that offering was.
It's not one that's required. It's not a required offering. You do it because you love him and you want to bring your best to him.
Okay, so now, let me attempt to poorly tie this together.
I'm sorry about that, Bill.
If all right, we talked about this last week. OPA, OPAS Assembly, is Torah pursuant. We understand that we're not Torah observant because we're not in the land. We don't have the priests. There's no way we can follow it every way we. So in being Torah pursuant, that kind of makes what we do a tradition. That's why you find so many different ways of people doing things at different seasons and different times. Why do we get together and begin the year with the Passover, as we're told in Exodus 12? To show Yah that we heard and understand and we're thankful, and we want to do everything we can to rehearse what we know is coming in the kingdom, because he said it was coming in the kingdom. All right, so if you can do that with every year and start the feasts off, can you do it we do it with every week, with the Sabbath, do we not? We're thankful for what he brought us through last week, and we're looking forward to what he's bringing up on us next week. If you can do it for the week and you can do it for the year, can you do it for the month? And that's all I'm saying, is the way that we celebrate the feasts, the way that we rehearse the feasts, is a tradition that's established here. You see, we know when by the scriptures, and we know why by the scriptures. Okay? But we're out of the land and we don't have the priests. The when is vague, to say the least. Right? And it seems to me, oh, wait a minute here, let me see. It seems to me that traditions should be developed, especially within a congregation. And to develop means to set forth and to make clear by decree or in detail, to work out the possibilities of, to produce to create or produce especially by deliberate effort over time, to cause to evolve or to unfold. Many of you, well, several of you, have traveled throughout the United States to different Passover events, different tabernacle events, those types of things, right? Okay, David travels around and he does walks people through Passover in different places. Okay, that's the way David does it. When he does it, he does the when, he does the why, the how he's thought through, and he's developed how he's going to present what he's going to present. He doesn't force anybody else to do what he's doing. And it shouldn't be that way. Nobody, let me think of somebody. Monty Judah shouldn't come to OPAS assembly, you gotta do it this way, you gotta do it this way. No. No. It should be agreed upon by the congregation, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's leading. We know the when, we know the why. Together we develop the how. My personal opinion, well, we're getting late.
That's okay.
Well,
My,
For
go ahead.
years, they had it set up, when David was teaching here, when he was still here, they did the Passover here, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
On
Mhm.
the Passover. Goes back with Alvin, always did it at the same time.
Okay,
Now, I never attended any of them because we do it with our family.
okay.
Just like, there's nowhere it says that the whole congregation has to gather, it says you're supposed to gather with your family and the,
Right.
or guests, if you have enough, or if you got too much, to invite somebody in to help you, okay, right? So I didn't not come because I didn't agree with anybody on it, I just did it at the same time, but I was doing it at home.
Uh-huh.
And so that was the way I did it, and I don't see where the conflict is. If they set up something here, that's what we've always followed, whatever David had set up and the elders had agreed upon.
I'm not using Passover as a conflict.
Well,
I'm using.
no, I'm just saying, because that was starting, they had it set up when the first day of the month was and when they were gonna do the Passover.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you?
Yes,
Yeah, and so.
still do,
Huh?
still do.
Yeah, so, we could go on, just like you did that study on the sliver of the moon and the new moon, and I made I know I get stuck on my own stuff. And sometimes I use common sense, but sometimes my common sense isn't as common as everybody else's, so. But to me, it's common sense. But the whole thing is, if you look at the world out there today, and you just got through saying that, no matter what we come to your conclusion here, somebody's not gonna agree with it, they're gonna do something on their own.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, that's the point I was trying to make, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, okay.
So you want to do something for the whole congregation, and I agree with you, we should. Whatever it is, that's the way we should do it as a group.
This whole thing is revolving not around Passover or any of the other feasts. The whole thing is revolving around the moon and the division that's within the fellowship because of the moon.
And you know what, one year I sat down with Alan and we had 7 different starting days for the first day of the year. And for every feast day, there was 7 different starting dates by the congregation that called the Messianic believers and the rabbinical Jews out there. 7 different days. And they're all reading the same scriptures. That's not.
Don't you think this just tickles you out of death?
Well, I know it
Well,
does.
it does say
So,
that you sit
but
up there
every
having
one of
a
those,
diet.
John, every one of those people are trying
He's
to
on his
do what they
Shabbat.
think they want to do. But see, the problem is, we put it in what we want and not what the Father wants. It's about Him, it's not about us. And I'm not trying to take you away from anything, I'm just saying that whatever this congregation believes, whatever they decide to do, we should do it. How far off are we gonna be?
Well, I
I
mean.
know what you're trying to do, you wanna get it exact.
No, I do not want to get it exact. I want unity. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, we're not the only congregation that has issues with chiming in, we're not.
Right.
I think most of them do. And what they do is, look, we've done, okay, so we're gonna start alcohol on this date. If that's different for you, then the doors are open longer, go ahead, you start when you want. But join us join the group anyway. Let's say the group starts on Monday, but you really think it's on Wednesday, so you join the group anyway, and then you can do something on Wednesday with your family or with any other people who start on Wednesday. Because you may not get agreement. Somebody may think adamantly that this is it, and I have proof, and I'm not gonna change my mind. And maybe one day they will, and maybe they won't.
It's true.
But at least-
I agree with all of that.
You know, just come together when they're all together, and if you think it's a different day, then do it on a different day.
Okay.
Cause I don't think we're gonna come to everybody agreeing to, cause we have people that attend here sometimes that like you said, there's 7 other, there's people who think there are other ways that the, you know, other times the month starts, that it's different.
Mm-hmm,
And that even the Sabbaths are on different days,
mm-hmm.
so
I
that
understand.
really throws things into the day. But they will come and fellowship with us.
Well, I don't have a dog in this hunt, but I have an observation. And there's division here.
But I think it's a choice by the person. Even if I don't totally agree with what you say, for community, I'm gonna do it with you. And then maybe, you know, I can do it on my own if I really feel hard that it's, you know,
I don't disagree with that, but
I think that's, yeah, probably the only answer.
I don't think y'all's pleased. I think he wants unity. Not uniformity. Don't get those confused. And maybe unity is the agreement that you're talking about.
Right, just agree to disagree and nobody makes a big deal.
Yeah. All right. With that, I'm done. It's time to
Prepare our hearts to receive blessing.